Chapter 262. Weibo. Fujio slept late last night and didn't wake up early either. She started packing her things as soon as she opened her eyes, preparing for the training in her best condition. She didn't even have a Weibo account. How could she be tagged? But hearing Shui Yaoyao's voice, Fujio knew something was up. She took out her new laptop and turned it on with one hand. I'm going to register for Weibo. Shui Yaoyao was confused. Register? No need, Boss Feng has already set up Weibo for us. Everyone's phone number is locked and authenticated, so Your Highness Zhou, you can just log in with your phone number. As for the password, Boss Feng should have already sent it to you. Fujio tilted her head and looked at her phone screen. There is indeed an unread message. I'll hang up first. See you at the airport. Okay. After Shui Yaoyao hung up, she didn't put down her phone immediately. Instead, she paid attention to Weibo on the way to the airport. Fujio held the laptop in one hand and the suitcase in the other. She didn't waste any time getting in the car. After getting in the car, she turned on the internet hotspot on her phone and logged into Weibo. As soon as she logged in, the first thing she saw were countless ads. Fujio put her left hand against the window and opened those ads with her right hand. Such a blood-boiling scene happened so early in the morning. Has Almighty Qin recognized her as his CP? Thanks to Spade Z, at least he made my idol post on Weibo twice in one day. I want to know how Spade Z will respond now. Spade Z must be shy from Almighty Qin's protection. But I still want to Spade Z. Spade Z too. Little Spade, the Almighty is asking you to eat noodles. Keep it ing. I'll let him too. There had never been a situation like this. An esports player's topic actually appeared in the top 10 searches, and it was still gaining popularity without any signs of dying down. Only popular idols could enjoy such treatment. But now, everything proved that Qin Mo and Fujio were undoubtedly popular in the esports circle. There were too many people tagging Fujio. Fujio didn't see Qin Mo tagging her at first, but when she clicked on Almighty Qin's homepage, she saw nice face, mainly because he looks good. Also, I will hold anyone who slandered Spade Z accountable. These were the two Weibo posts. To be honest, Fujio had never been protected like this in both of her lives. His beautiful thin lips unconsciously rose a little, but he was also very clear that there must be a reason for such a phenomenon. Soon, she found the cause. After seeing the post, Fujio's eyes darkened, but she didn't hack the person who posted it. Very simply, this kind of person was not worth her trouble here. That person kept saying that she used to like Spade Z, and that she did this because Spade Z's style disappointed her. She apologized for the post, but she would never like Spade Z again. All of this, Fujio only left one sentence on the post. I play games, not my style. I'm not begging anyone to like me. The existence of this post is disrespectful to other teams. You can hate me if you want, it doesn't matter. Chapter 263. The person being fed looks more pleasing to the eye, moi. The last sentence made the entire Weibo explode. Especially this message from Fujio. Fujio retweeted Qin Mo's previous Weibo post, and there was even a picture of him feeding her noodles. Qin Mo was indeed very handsome in that picture. His noble and indifferent handsome face was tilted to the side, and there was even a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, which was very rare to see. His slender fingers held Fujio's wrist. His face was fine, and his eyes were deep and beautiful. In fact, if one was a real Qin fan, they would definitely be able to see how much Almighty Qin indulged the young man who raised his eyebrows and smiled wickedly when he fed him noodles. Spade Z had never posted anything on his official Weibo, which meant that this was the first message Fujio had posted on Weibo. The moment it was sent out, the number of replies below the message exceeded 10. In less than a minute, it broke 100 again. Mwah. Are you flirting? As expected of my Big Spade. The girl who posted the post to diss Big Spade, what an embarrassing slap to her face. Big Spade doesn't seem to care about her. Of course not, Big Spade only has eyes for Almighty Chin. Before I saw this Weibo post, I always thought that Almighty Chin was the one and only strong attacker in my mind. Now I have to re-examine this CP relationship. Who is the attacker and who is the victim? My Big Spade is the attacker. Alright, this is the first time I've ever been a reverse CP, very good, this is Big Spade. Almighty Chin has never been teased like this before, mwah. I just want to say 3 words, mwax. Follow me downstairs, mwax. Chin Mo's screen was flooded with kisses, but he saw the reply he wanted to see the most. He knew how good a certain someone was at flirting. However, when he heard the young man's words, he couldn't help but smile, and the coldness in his eyes dissipated quite a bit. He unlocked his phone and replied, "Where are you?" Spade Z, on the way to the airport. Where's brother Mo? Same, wait for me at departure tower 1. Spade Z, okay. Just like that, the two of them chatted on Weibo unscrupulously. There was simply no one else like this dog wolf. The fans screamed out loud below the stage. Wait a minute, Big Spade is going to travel with Almighty Chin. It can't be a vacation, right? I heard Supreme Alliance is going to Tokyo for training, it's reliable news. But it's so cute to be at the airport. I can already imagine my Big Spade waiting for Almighty Chin at the airport with a suitcase. It's so cute. There must be a lollipop in his mouth, definitely. Wait for Almighty Chin's little spade, heh, the fans were right. Fujio was indeed waiting for Almighty Chin, but she didn't pull the suitcase. Instead, she sat on the suitcase, holding the boarding pass she had just changed into. She had already been to Tokyo. As a hacker, she promised to buy some things in the world's most developed electronic city. This time, the team was moving as a team, so they subconsciously looked forward to it. Overall, Fujio was quite relaxed. Chin Mo alighted from the Hummer, his left hand pulling the suitcase, his right hand holding his phone. The moment he walked into the airport, he saw the youngster in this state. Chapter 264. Chin Mo curled his thin lips, lifted his legs, and walked over. He patted the young man's head and said calmly, "Let's go." Fujio glanced at Chin Mo's suitcase. So little. What else do I need to bring besides toiletries and sheets? Chin Mo asked as he waited for his boarding pass. Fujio was still sitting on the suitcase. Every time Chin Mo walked, she moved forward with her legs and smiled handsomely. Clothes. Don't forget we have to stay in Tokyo for 3 days. We can buy them when we get there. Chin Mo took the boarding pass. Seeing that the young man was sitting on the suitcase, he pushed it with one hand so that he could walk forward. Hearing the Almighty's words, Fujio suddenly felt that her identity as a rich person was too shabby. If you don't even bring clothes, why would you bring sheets? Chin Mo glanced back at the young man, and his attitude was very cold. No matter how high-end a hotel is, the bed is never clean. This is common sense. Fujio. She felt like she was being mocked again. Chin Mo didn't let the young man walk by himself, nor did he bend over. He just pushed the suitcase with one hand and handed the boarding pass and ID card to the young man with the other. That scene was so cute that it was no wonder that the girls on the plane wanted to take a picture of it. But every time the girl raised her phone, the young man would look at her. She could only shout that he was handsome and her heart was beating fast, so she didn't do it in the end. But some Jiang City local gamers saw that almighty Qin and Fu Jiu were coming to the airport on Weibo, so they all rushed over to capture them on the spot. Unfortunately, they were too slow. When they arrived at the airport, the two men had already passed the security check. From afar, they saw Lin Feng holding a coffee and talking to Yunhu next to him. There was also Uncle Yin and Shui Yaoyao standing next to him. The Supreme Alliance was required to wear the team uniform. They stood together at the boarding gate, wearing the same jacket with the Supreme Alliance logo on the back. Just like that, it became a special scene in the airport. The wives who were going to Tokyo to shop and travel had already turned back to look at them several times. When Fu Jiu and Qin Mo walked over together, they couldn't help but ask, "What are they doing?" "Dancing stars. They look like the posters in my girl's house." "You're uncultured again. That's called a Korean group." Yes, that's the word. A Korean group." As the aunties spoke, they secretly sized up Fu Jiu. "This young man is handsome, the type my daughter likes." "What's the use of that? No matter how good-looking he is, he's not from China." Fu Jiu heard this and smiled. "Auntie, I'm Chinese. We're not a Korean group, we're an esports team." Esports team. The aunties were all confused, indicating that they had never heard of it. But Fu Jiu's answer amused them, and they pulled Fu Jiu along to ask her again. Since she was waiting for her turn, Fu Jiu sat there and chatted with the group of ants. This made the other members of the team feel helpless. I realized that this kid, from the age of 48 to the age of 8, can instantly become his fan. How can he chat so happily with the aunties? Lin Feng clicked his tongue. I was worried that little Spade would be affected after reading Weibo, but it seems like it's nothing. Chapter 265. Lin Feng chuckled. Are you sure he's in a good mood and not flirting with the aunties? How on earth did he compliment an auntie for looking like she was 18? Yunhu tilted his head and studied him for a long time. Lin Feng took a sip of coffee, furious. That auntie is going to invest in him. But I don't even have a girlfriend. Yunhu fiddled with the boarding pass. This has nothing to do with words, it has to do with looks. Forget about your face. While the team members were still exchanging thoughts, Qin Mo pulled the bewitching youngster back to the team. Familiarize yourself with the hotel address for the last time. Feng Yi will stay in China to deal with the aftermath. Secretary Liang will take over his work. For the next 3 days, you can look for him if you encounter any problems. Coco and Fatty had already boarded the plane. Now, check your watch and pass. Qin Mo came from the military compound and had always done things in a military style. Once he spoke, everyone obeyed without any noise. After everything was arranged, the Supreme Alliance officially boarded the plane. 3 days of training and 1 East China international friendly match. The most important was the latter. In Feng Yi's words, the opponent was very strong. During last year's training, they had completely suppressed Supreme Alliance. Moreover, they had recruited a new player king this year and had a high number of first kills on the Tokyo national server. If the current Supreme Alliance couldn't even beat the opponent, they wouldn't be qualified to participate in the National League. In other words, this was a competition to test their qualifications. If they won, Supreme Alliance would receive countless cheers. If they lost again, even if Almighty Qin was there, it would definitely damage their reputation. Most importantly, only people who were familiar with League of Legends knew that if they wanted to be recognized by more people, especially those around them, they had to prove that they weren't playing games as people said, eating and waiting for death, achieving nothing. Translator's thoughts. Uni editor. Most importantly, only people who were familiar with League of Legends knew that if they wanted to be recognized by more people, especially those around them. They had to prove that they weren't playing games for nothing. This was Shui Yaoyao's first time taking a plane. From the moment they took off, she couldn't calm down. She could see the endless clouds from the window seat. She didn't tell anyone that this trip to Tokyo caused many people to criticize her. She lived in a courtyard house and there would always be people visiting. The benefits of playing a game are so good. It must be a lie. Forget it. Just let her dream. She just doesn't like the job I introduced to her. She thinks we are harming her. This child is so immature. She doesn't even look at her own condition. I won't persuade her anymore. Do what you want. She will regret it in the future. Shui Yaoyao knew that a selection contest couldn't change ordinary people's views. If a real normal person knew that you were playing in a professional team, the first thing they would say to you would be, "If you're so good, why aren't you on TV?" At times like this, she would always be speechless. Shui Yaoyao knew that if she wanted to prove herself, she had to participate in the National League. Because only by standing on the national stage would those people shut up. In fact, even Fu Jiu was the same. Most people in the school would not care about a small selection contest. National competition, Shui Yaoyao wasn't the only one who wanted to go. Yin Wuyao, Feng Shang, Lin Feng, Yunhu, and all the other team members treated that place as their dream. He wanted to prove that he was not old. He wanted to prove that he could play the game well even if he stuttered. Chapter 266. Jiang City was the capital of China, so it wasn't far from Tokyo. Even though it was an international flight, it only took 4 hours to reach Tokyo. But in just a short 4 hours, the sleepy Fu Jiu put on the eye mask provided by the airline after she got on the plane. She adjusted her seat and tilted her head. Her silver hair fell on the eye mask, and the contrast between the black and white areas was beautiful. Qin Mo arranged the youngster beside him to prevent him from flirting with others. But after seeing Fu Jiu being so obedient, he inexplicably softened his face. When the air stewardess walked over, he put down the magazine and said, "Please bring me a blanket." The air stewardess looked at Qin Mo and blushed. Even though she had seen many handsome guys, it was rare to see one with such a deep and magnetic voice. But obviously, Qin Mo's attention wasn't on the air stewardess at all. No matter how sweet her smile was, he only took the blanket and looked at the youngster's sleeping face. When he turned to the side, he was even closer to the youngster. Qin Mo only paused for a moment and pulled his hand back. But this time, he wasn't reading the business magazine because the youngster tilted his head and put it on his shoulder. Qin Mo frowned and didn't push him away. It was probably because there was a person sleeping next to him. Qin Mo was affected as well. 10 minutes later, he fell into a light sleep as well. Lin Feng didn't turn his head. He wanted to give Little Spade a beef burger, but he saw such an intimate scene. He opened his mouth wide and was stunned for a while. Then, he turned back and asked Yunhu, "Do you think Captain would give himself to Little Spade in order to win the National League?" "You can ask Captain yourself." Yunhu threw this sentence at him and put on the eye mask, ready to sleep. Lin Feng muttered, "How would I have the guts to ask him myself? I'm not stupid." But it seems that Captain treats Little Spade exceptionally well. Captain took him as his little brother. Now that things have come to this is the only explanation I can give. Lin Feng quickly accepted it. "I see. Then it makes sense." Secretary Liang sat beside him and raised his head to look at the cabin. What kind of communication was that? How could they be brothers? However, he would rather be thinking too much. After all, Boss Qin grew up alone. It wasn't strange for him to protect someone he liked and was younger than him. But when he thought of the conversation on Weibo today, Secretary Liang wasn't sure again. Madam and the rest had not returned to China yet, but once they did, they would definitely ask about this matter. Right now, he could only hope that the situation would change when he arrived in Tokyo. After all, he would be able to bump into Miss Lioli's team this time. When Fujio woke up, she took off her blindfold and felt the glare of the sun, which meant that the plane was descending. Chin-mo woke up earlier than him. When he saw the youngster open his eyes, he pointed at his shoulder and smiled coldly. "It's all your saliva. What do you think I should do? I'll give you my uniform." Fujio smiled at Chin-mo, sat up straight, and pretended to take off her coat. "As long as Brother Mo doesn't mind my dirty clothes." Chin-mo lifted his thin lips. "Don't use this method. When we reach the hotel, wash the clothes." Fujio. Chapter 267. The Supreme Alliance's hotel was in the center of Tokyo, which was known as the city with the most advanced electronic technology in the world. Here, they didn't discriminate against esports games or voice actors. They chose this place to train so that the team members could better integrate into the environment. The streets were very clean, and the people walking back and forth were all speaking Japanese, which made people feel like they were in a manga world. But when they arrived at the hotel lobby, there was a very awkward problem. No matter how rich the Supreme Alliance was, they only booked a double standard room for 2 people. It was impossible for each person to stay in one room. After hearing this news, Fujio raised her eyebrows and squinted her beautiful eyes, but her expression didn't change. After the incident at the convenience store, she already knew how good this god was at analyzing people, so she didn't stand up to speak immediately. But when Shui Yaoyao looked up, her heart skipped a beat. 2 people sleeping in one room for 3 days. What about His Highness Joe? No matter who she slept with, it wouldn't be very convenient, right? What if her secret was found out? Thinking of this, Shui Yaoyao looked in Fujio's direction. Fujio was also looking at her. Her fingers moved a little, but it was very small. Shui Yaoyao was a smart girl. She turned her eyes and said to Secretary Liang, "I'm timid, and I don't dare to sleep alone. Can you arrange for me to sleep with His Highness Joe? We are familiar with each other, and I trust His Highness Joe." This sudden suggestion made all the team members put down their luggage and look at her in astonishment. Sister Yaoyao wanted to share a room with Little Spade. Man and woman in the same room. So open. Even Chin-mo's left hand, which was holding the room card, paused for a second. When he raised his eyebrows, he was already a little cold. Feng Shang stuttered even harder. What did you say? You let my idol sleep with you." Lin Feng also had a naughty smile on his face. "Sister Yao, you can do it. You can do whatever you want with Little Spade. You can even kiss him." Shui Yaoyao's cute apple face turned red, but she didn't back down on this issue. She just didn't know what to say. Fujio walked over with one hand in her pocket and the other on Shui Yaoyao's shoulder. She smiled and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Sister Yao needs to find a boyfriend in the future, but she's really afraid of the dark. Even if she's afraid of the dark, a girl's reputation will be affected if a man and a woman live together." Chin-mo walked over and interrupted the youngster with a cold voice. Fujio smiled. "I agree with this, so please take care of little sister Yao and find a beautiful woman to sleep with her. As for me, I'll share a room with my baby Feng." Fujio turned her head and winked at Feng Shang with her left eye. Feng Shang was overjoyed. Just as he was about to speak, "The room is ready. You and I will share a room." Chin-mo's presence at this moment gave people an indescribable sense of oppression. It was obvious that he was talking to Fujio. Feng Shang panicked. I'll trade with Almighty Qin." Chin-mo laughed softly, turning back to look at Feng Shang. His deep gaze was especially gentle, but his words were cold. Second young master, I can guide your idol in gaming, can you? Feng Shang really didn't notice anything. He only felt that being able to be so close to his idol in this life was like a pie falling from the sky. Secretary Liang followed Qin Mo into the elevator, so he was the one who felt the coldness the most. Looking at Boss Qin's handsome face, which had obviously turned cold, he really didn't dare to say a word. Qin Mo looked at the number on the elevator indifferently, as though nothing had happened. Chapter 269. He probably didn't expect to be rejected. So once something like this happened, it always made people uncomfortable. Qin Mo narrowed his eyes dangerously. It was very uncomfortable. Secretary Liang was very nervous and didn't dare to say anything. After getting out of the elevator, his phone rang and saved his life. Looking at the tall and noble figure in front of him, Secretary Liang heaved a sigh of relief. He adjusted his breath and said very gently, "Miss Lioli, yes, we are here. Yes, we are still in the hotel. There is no need for lunch. Boss Qin seems a little tired. They're all here for training. Sure, I'll bring them over in the afternoon." After Secretary Liang finished speaking, he met Qin Mo's cold eyes. He hurriedly explained, "Vice President Feng has already arranged the schedule beforehand. The two teams will train together." Qin Mo entered the room and tugged at the collar of his jacket. His voice was cold. That was in the past. Now that the team has a new member, we'll change it tomorrow. Yes. Secretary Liang also knew that their CEO didn't like to interact with girls, but if he didn't interact with them, he would turn gay. On the other side, baby Feng was still excited. He looked at Fu Jiu with a red face. "Oh idol, which bed do you want to sleep on?" "Me." Fu Jiu lowered her head and threw her school bag away. She looked very handsome. "Either is fine." Baby Feng was very serious. Then I choose to go outside. Bad guys come. I can still protect my idol." Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows and whistled at Feng Shang. "No matter how you look at it, you are the one being protected, right?" Baby Feng. He was speechless. That idol, you and Almighty Qin, what happened to you two?" Student Feng Shang is still very sensitive in certain areas. Fu Jiu turned her head and laid on the bed with her long legs slightly crossed. "Nothing, I'm fine." "Then, why don't you sleep with Almighty Qin?" Why do you want to sleep with me?" Feng Shang's intuition tells me that there's something wrong with this. With the lollipop in her mouth, Fu Jiu lowered her head and unzipped it. "You didn't ask for it. Although it's my request, but it's still not right." Thinking about this, Feng Shang smiled. "Is it true that my idol likes me more than Almighty Qin?" "Baby Feng, you're thinking too much. Almighty Qin is too handsome. I'm afraid that if we stay together at night, I won't be able to resist sleeping with him. What if he beats me up? How inappropriate." Did this mean that he had no value in sleeping with her? Feng Shang was unconvinced. I'm not bad looking." "That's true." Fu Jiu agreed. "But even if I sleep with you, you will only be suppressed. You won't be able to beat me, so it's relatively safer." Feng Shang was speechless. Why was he always the one being suppressed? Unhappy. "There's a message in the WeChat group." Fu Jiu glanced sideways at the phone screen. "Gather downstairs in an hour. We're going to the training center." After reading this sentence, Fu Jiu looked up and smiled lightly. "All right, let's pack up. We're going to meet the friendly team in a bit. I heard they're all girls." Chapter 270. Fujio stopped playing with the rhythm master. She looked up and replied slowly, Lin Feng, believe me, as long as Brother Mo is around, you don't need to care about how cool you are. Even if you are as beautiful as a fairy, you will only attract men. Girls won't look at you. Lin Feng. This was a critical hit. Yunhu followed behind him and gave Fujio a thumbs up, giving her a thumbs up. Fujio was still wearing a black mask when they gathered downstairs. The weather in Tokyo wasn't that warm. In Jiang City, the mask could prevent the smog, and it could keep her warm outside. Those guys from the Supreme Alliance looked like they had just taken a shower. Their hair must have been blown by the wind. Even Uncle Ian had put a lot of mousse on his head. This was Tokyo. If they were in Jiang City, they would be covered in dirt after going out for a walk. Apart from Qin Mo, the only normal person was Shui Yaoyao. Of course, there was also Fujio. In fact, Fujio didn't understand what was going on with his teammates. She turned around and asked Shui Yaoyao, they don't look like they are going to meet a friendly team. They look like they are going on a blind date. Even Baby Feng took off his glasses seriously and put on a pair of brown contact lenses. He looked more than twice as handsome in an instant. Is there a need to go through so much trouble? Fujio waited for Baby Feng to wash his hair for 30 minutes, which is as long as a young girl needs to put on makeup. Lin Feng glanced at Fujio and acted like an experienced person. Little Spade, you don't understand. If you don't dress up when you stand beside Captain, you won't be remembered at all. Moreover, our friendly team is Kali. Think about it, don't you think this is the most important factor in your life to get rid of being single? Fujio repeated the two words, and there was only one sentence in her eyes. I don't know them. All the team members, including Shui Yaoyao, looked at Fujio in surprise. No way, Little Spade, you don't know Kali when you play hero. The expression on Lin Feng's face almost became a highlight. They are so famous, especially in the hearts of us otakus. They are simply a concentration camp for goddesses. Fujio laughed and took off her mask. She pointed at her face and said, you don't deserve to be an otaku with your looks. Otaku have their own standards for looks. I'm so handsome, so forget it. Lin Feng. Damn it, the second wave of attacks. Yes, yes. You're the most handsome. Lin Feng really wanted to drag this guy over and beat him up. But no matter what, it's weird that you don't know Carly. Everyone who follows Hero should know her. Fujio glanced at Qin Mo, who hadn't spoken to her all this time, and suddenly curled up her thin lips. I've only heard of Almighty Qin. I've never heard of anyone else. Chapter 271. Brother Mo, if you don't say it out loud, we can still be friends. When Fujio first started playing games, it was indeed to earn some pocket money. Now that she was participating in the national competition, it was also to help Yihonghua take back the company. Fujio's words sounded unbelievable to the others. The new player king in Zone C playing hero was actually an accident. What was going on? Fujio looked at everyone's eyes on her and smiled again. But since we decided to play, we will do our best. Our goal is the national competition, right? Lin Feng was still confused. Then what did you want to do at the beginning? Get so many first clears in Zone C. Make money. Fu Zhongyi removed me from the Fu family. My mom's company is in trouble. If we don't make money, our villa will be bought. I can't let that third will get what he wants. First, I need a sum of money. It's quite profitable to help people in games. Fujio was telling the truth. Feng Shang looked at her with a pitiful face. Oh idol, I didn't know you were so poor. Fujio. Did she look poor? She couldn't play with these rich second generations anymore. After hearing this, Shui Yaoyao looked at Fu Jiu in a different light. She never thought that His Highness Jiu would have to deal with all this. She thought that with the Fu family's power, at least His Highness Jiu wouldn't have to make money by himself, but now that she thought about it, if the Fu family didn't have any problems, His Highness Jiu wouldn't have to pretend to be a boy. Maybe it was because His Highness Jiu was so cool and handsome that people forgot that she actually had to shoulder the same burden as everyone else. She was indeed confused. Only people who had been treated unfairly would say those words in front of the media. Fu Jiu saw Shui Yaoyao looking at her, so she looked over and raised her eyebrows. Then she smiled again, looking handsome and gentle. Shui Yaoyao felt her heart melt at that moment. She had found the existence of a benchmark. Okay, let's go out. The business car is here. Secretary Liang basically took over Feng Yi's work. In fact, it was a bit of a waste to let a CEO's secretary do these things. But to ensure that Boss Qin didn't become gay, he had to follow him without anyone else's help. The Qin group was indeed rich. They even chose a top-notch brand for their business car. It was a pure black model that was very comfortable to sit in. Fu Jiu didn't move immediately. Instead, she put half of the yen in her pocket into Shui Yaoyao's palm after everyone got into the MPV. Buy whatever you like. Tokyo is a shopping paradise for women. You probably haven't had time to exchange it for Japanese currency. Shui Yaoyao opened her mouth to reject. Fu Jiu pulled her hand over and dragged her into the car. You can return it to me later, okay? Lin Feng sat in the huge commercial car. When he saw this scene, he couldn't help but rub his chin. Chapter 272. The training place was the biggest gaming arena in Tokyo. What was the most important thing in gaming? That was the atmosphere. Why were so many people willing to go to the internet cafe when they had a computer at home? Just ask those who have played AU or Dazzle Dance and they'll know. Sitting together, playing the rhythm, typing on the keyboard, that crisp sound made people feel great. It was the same when playing Hero. Hero was a game that paid great attention to strategy and teamwork. That was why so many people liked it. The gaming arena was very lively. All of them were Japanese teenagers who liked gaming. Some of them were even carrying backpacks and beating electronic drums. The first floor was the public area, similar to the large-scale gaming arenas in China. But in Tokyo, this kind of place was very important. Even the people who distributed the flyers were dressed in costumes that were cosplayed from the anime. They were very, very cute girls wearing a pure white foxtail. When they winked at you, not only would boys like them, but girls would also be happy. Shui Yaoyao came here, and it was like she had opened a new world. She looked at everything in surprise. It was really lively here. The dancing machines were arranged in a row, and there were even two dancers fighting on them. Every movement was very handsome. When Fu Jiu and her group came in, people only raised their eyebrows when they saw their uniforms. Chinese. Secretary Liang, a middle-aged man in a suit, was completely out of place here. So he coughed heavily and continued to lead the way. Not this floor. The training base is on the 6th floor. Baby Feng, the otaku who stayed at home all year round, looked at Secretary Liang with doubt, as if to say, "Are you sure you want to train here, in a place where people come and go?" Secretary Liang pushed up the glasses on his face. The place was chosen by Vice President Feng. I believe he must have his reasons for doing so. What reasons? Feng Shang stuttered even harder when he was alone. Secretary Liang. How did he know? He was just a secretary who handled business meetings. How could he know anything about gaming? Because this is the best place to train your reaction speed and hand speed. She glanced at the dance machine on the left, and her eyes seemed to have the afterglow of the lights. When you're tired from playing games, you can come down and exercise a bit to relieve your stress. The dance machine is used to train your body coordination and reflexes. There's a game called Starlight over there, and the principle is similar to Rhythm Master. You can hit the cubes to the music. But if you choose the hard mode, you'll realize that your hands might not be able to keep up with the movements of your eyes. The main problem is that your eyes can't keep up with the speed of the cubes, so it's very useful for training your hand speed and peripheral vision. Chapter 273. Hearing that, the team members turned to look at Secretary Liang. Secretary Liang shook his head with a smile. I didn't know young Master Zhou very well before, so I don't know. The team members were disappointed and went to look elsewhere. Secretary Liang really didn't want to talk about Fu Zhou's glorious past. Moreover, he only knew that young Master Fu liked to go to nightclubs, but he didn't know that he liked to come to places like this and had such a deep intention, to practice his hand speed. Secretary Liang somehow felt that Fu Zhou had noticed something, and she said that specifically to him. But Secretary Liang thought about it carefully and didn't think it was possible. A high school student shouldn't be that meticulous, right? The corners of Fu Zhou's mouth curled up in a scheming manner. When she brushed past him, she smiled again. Secretary Liang, tell me honestly, are you afraid that I will turn Brother Mo gay? She spoke in a low voice, and in such a crowded place, only a few people heard it. Moreover, the team members' attention was on all kinds of game consoles. Secretary Liang was always calm, but at this moment, he couldn't help but be shocked. His face was expressionless as he smiled gently. Young Master Zhou, you think too much. Oh, then I'll sleep in Brother Mo's room tonight. Fu Zhou liked to tease people like Secretary Liang. In fact, Brother Mo is quite indulgent with me, don't you think? Secretary Liang. What's the difference between your tone and a spoiled concubine's? Can't you just play properly? He took a deep breath. Young Master Zhou, you must be joking. CEO Qin has always treated you as a younger brother. After all, he's the only child in the Qin family. He played alone when he was young, and he wanted to get close to you when he saw you. Oh. Fu Zhou nodded. I'll believe you for now. Secretary Liang. For now, but don't worry, no one dares to turn Brother Mo gay. Fu Zhou had one hand in her pocket, and her voice was still indifferent. Whoever turns him gay will sleep with him. I'm not stupid. You don't have to isolate me and Brother Mo every time you see us together. Be careful, Brother Mo might get angry and send you to the wilderness to be his secretary. The last sentence was the main point. Secretary Liang's heart was in turmoil. He only had one thought, what's wrong with students nowadays? He was suppressed by a college student, Boss Qin. After all, Boss Qin's aura and means were there. Now, he was being suppressed by a high school student. Most importantly, what the young man said made sense. He couldn't refute it. Each floor is truly a different world. Lin Feng didn't hear what Fu Zhou and Secretary Liang were talking about. He nudged the young man with his shoulder. Little Spade, we'll be on the 6th floor soon. Trust me, the scenery on the 6th floor is not about these cold machines. The most important thing is the Cali girls, especially their captain. Have you heard of Ice Beauty Liuli? He lived up to his name. He had a good temperament and good looks. His family owned an entertainment company. He was rich and wealthy. She's young and has just started university, but she's good at playing games. She's very pretty, and she doesn't know any of the popular celebrities at all. She has most of the male fans and hero, but Miss Luli doesn't lack money, so she doesn't livestream much. She's the same as the captain, very cold and aloof. You'll know when you see her, but you can only watch from afar. After all. Chapter 274. The smart Fujio raised her eyebrows in surprise. She knew very well what Lin Feng meant by, you know. She laughed along with him. Then does the ice beauty like Brother Mo? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Lin Feng nodded hard, as if to say, bro, you're so smart. I figured it out myself, so don't tell anyone. I'm not sure if she likes me or not, but that ice beauty smiles every time she sees Captain Fujio. Isn't that called liking? Then tell me what liking looks like. I figured it out. What do you think? I'm good, right? Lin Feng lowered his voice. So, little spade, follow your brother in the team, and you'll have meat to eat. Fujio looked at him seriously. If you can figure it out, then everyone else must have figured it out too. What's there to be proud of? Lin Feng. Fujio didn't talk to the petrified Lin Feng anymore. But she felt more and more like this was a blind date, not a friendly team. She suspected that this friendly team was arranged by Manager Feng to stimulate his teammates' energy. For example, in front of beautiful girls, boys would try their best to look as handsome as possible. No wonder people called him Fox Feng, for he could even think of this kind of thing. Oh. Brother Feng. Brother Tiger. Captain. You're finally here. As soon as they reached the 6th floor, they didn't see any girls, but they saw a figure rushing towards them. That figure was none other than the popular Coco. It turned out that he had arrived long ago and came directly to the training ground. I'm not going to the all-star competition anymore, I want to stay with everyone. Fight together. Fatty was there too, but his reaction was completely different from Coco's. He said to Fujio excitedly, I've prepared the computer, how about we PK? How did you dodge my attack last time and throw the virus at me at the same time? That was a beautiful move. Fujio didn't expect Fatty to be so enthusiastic when they met again. Fatty was a fanatical hacker, and he was very persistent in this aspect. Oh right, what's your ranking in our field? How did I? Fatty, Chin Mo said. Chin Mo interrupted him with a cold voice. You want to be a vegetarian for a week again? Instantly, Fatty shut his mouth. Even Coco stood at attention. Boss Chin, Captain, didn't seem to be in a good mood. Even his eyes were as cold as ice. Why? Fatty and Coco turned to look at the members at the same time, trying to find an answer. Everyone used their eyes to express that they didn't know either. For some reason, the atmosphere at the scene was a little stiff. Fortunately, a burst of laughter came from the other side, breaking the tension. Coco asked you to pick someone up. Why are you chatting here? As soon as he finished speaking, no less than 7 long-legged beauties walked over. Each of them was wearing the battle uniform specially made for the battle team. They were all red, with short skirts and long boots, giving off an extremely beautiful feeling. The one who spoke was obviously more imposing, but he wasn't the most good-looking one among them. Chapter 275. Fujio curled up the corner of her lips. This must be the Lioli beauty that Lin Feng was talking about. The beauty brought many girls behind her and walked towards them. It was indeed very pleasing to the eye. Most of the Supreme Alliance members were men. Even a man would feel a little overwhelmed when he saw so many girls. Each of them was extremely pure, looking sideways and pretending to be cool. This made all the beauties in the friendly team laugh. There are girls in the team this time. There was a girl in the Kali team. Her eyes were round as she looked towards Shui Yao Yao. Shui Yao Yao was about to say something. That girl spoke again with a bit of petulance. Coco, you're lying. You said that the Supreme Alliance doesn't want girls. There weren't any before. Coco often does shows and live broadcasts outside, so he knows a lot of people. It's inevitable that he will meet friends who want to join the Supreme Alliance. But he wasn't sure about the captain's recruitment requirements, so he used this excuse to refuse. After all, their intentions were too obvious. They didn't want to join the Supreme Alliance, but they wanted to get close to the captain. In order not to be frozen to death by the captain, of course he couldn't agree to their request, even if they were popular. Secretary Liang laughed. Miss Xiaotong, as long as you are a master, the Supreme Alliance welcomes you. According to Secretary Liang, the cute girl called Xiaotong glanced at Shui Yaoyao, then she smiled and said hesitantly, a beauty? A master. Shui Yaoyao was a little embarrassed. Maybe others couldn't tell, but as a girl, the girl's pause when talking about the beauty showed that there was a hidden meaning in her words. My name is Lin Xiaotong, and I'm called Tong Xiao Dian in the game. You should have heard of me. Lin Xiaotong reached out her hand, seemingly to shake Shui Yaoyao's hand in a friendly manner. Before the people from the Supreme Alliance came, they had already heard about this year's situation from their friends. Not only was there a gay in the Fu family, there was also a very fat girl who was quite famous in No. 1 middle school. It was said that she came from a poor family, liked to steal, and didn't like to bathe. Lin Xiaotong didn't like Shui Yaoyao at first sight. How could such a person be qualified to join the Supreme Alliance? It was an insult to the real professional teams. Lin Xiaotong was waiting for Shui Yaoyao to extend her hand with a smile. She and the entire Kali team were very sweet. Shui Yaoyao had been through a lot. She knew that this was probably a common tactic used by some pretty girls. Some fights only belonged to girls. Boys basically couldn't understand it. Even though she knew that the other party was trying to put her down, Shui Yaoyao couldn't just throw a tantrum at him right now. That would only give people more reasons to talk about her, saying that she had a lot of ugly things to do. Shui Yaoyao clenched her right hand and was about to move. However, there was one person who reached out his hand even faster than her. I'm sorry, we've only heard of Supreme Alliance. We don't know much about the other teams. It was Fuzhou. With her silver hair and dark eyes, she always gave off a sharp aura. She was such a gentle person. At this moment, even his smiling lips seemed to carry an imperceptible chill. The young man held Lin Xiaotong's hand gently. His side profile was handsome and youthful. Lin Xiaotong stilled. Only Supreme Alliance. Fuzhou was still laughing. Supreme Alliance is famous. Did he mean that Carly was not famous? Chapter 276. The Kali team also had two girls who were really generous, and they didn't know what they were talking about. Lin Xiaotong was small and sweet, and she thought that she was considerate. But in fact, when something happened, she would think that the other side was picking on her. Such a person would never think that it was she who crossed the other side's bottom line, and that was why there was a follow-up. I'm sorry, our Kali team isn't that famous. Lin Xiaotong said sarcastically, but young Master Fu, sometimes you have to see if your way of doing things is appropriate. After all, you have become a member of the Supreme Alliance. It's better to think about some things before you speak. Fuzhou raised her eyebrows. I've thought it through, so I have something to ask Secretary Liang. As she said this, the youngster looked sideways and smiled. Is this really a friendly team of our Supreme Alliance? Secretary Liang knew something was wrong when he saw the situation. He was anxious, thinking that Lin Xiaotong, of all people you could have messed with, why did you have to mess with such a tough opponent? Secretary Liang always dealt with things calmly. Yes, let's go in first, and we can talk about the small talk later. Since Secretary Liang said so, Fu Jiu had to give face to old Liang. Secretary Liang. When did he become old Liang? But Lin Xiaotong was not happy. What do you mean by this is really a friendly team of our Supreme Alliance? Young Master Fu, you have to explain yourself, right? It wasn't until this moment that the rough men of the Supreme Alliance realized that something was wrong, and they all looked at Fu Jiu. Did they start a fight? Fu Jiu stopped and looked indifferent. Miss Lin, you are not important enough for me to explain anything. If you really want an explanation, why don't you talk about your attitude just now? Shui Yao Yao is my teammate. I don't care what you think, but please remember one thing. You disrespected her, so you were picking on me. You. Lin Xiaotong still wanted to say something. Beauty Liuli, who was standing beside her, reached out and pressed down on her wrist. Xiaotong, you're used to speaking carelessly, that's why people misunderstand you. Be more careful next time. It's not like we've known Supreme Alliance for the first time, we're all old friends, don't let this cause a rift between us. Young Master Fu, I apologize on behalf of Xiaotong. It's inevitable that there will be friction between the two teams. Now that the Supreme Alliance has new members, we need to work together. This girl wanted to join the Supreme Alliance, but she didn't. Now that she sees you guys in, it's inevitable that she will feel uncomfortable. Fu Jiu looked at Liuli. As Liuli spoke, she nodded at Lin Xiaotong's head with a faint smile in a very intimate manner. When Shui Yao Yao heard this, she tugged at the corner of Fu Jiu's clothes. She didn't want to cause trouble for His Highness Jiu. Fu Jiu looked sideways at that round face, and it was easy to think of He Honghua at home. If it weren't for Shui Yao Yao, Yin Wuyao, and Feng Shang, there wouldn't be a selection contest. She couldn't let anyone trample on her people. That was her principle. So it's jealousy. Fu Jiu laughed and looked at Lin Xiaotong. That's easy to understand. Chapter 277. Liuli was a person who knew how to conduct herself, not to mention that she didn't want to waste the few opportunities to get close to that man this year. Of course, she couldn't change it because of other things. She leaned to the left. Let's go in and have a look. This year's scale is bigger than in previous years. Sakura Stream Team is also training. We had a fight with them 3 days ago. To be honest, we were badly beaten. Sakura Stream Team's fighting power has more than doubled. Compared with last year, they are like two different people. Now, every minute and every second is very important to you. As for the running in, we can take our time. Now, let's go to the training. These words easily made the attention of the Supreme Alliance members focus on how strong the Sakura Stream squad was. Their original playful thoughts also became serious, and they didn't think about the small frictions just now. The training room wasn't a rigid office. There were a few computers placed around the training room for the team members to practice their skills. If that was the case, it would be more convenient to stay in Jiang City, and they wouldn't have to fly to Tokyo. The training room here was more like a very large internet cafe. No, it wasn't exactly an internet cafe. It was full of computers, and there were countless people sitting there. But these people were fundamentally different from the ordinary people who played games in the internet cafe. They were all professional players from all over Tokyo. If they wanted to play games, they would come here to relax. That was to say, every person you met here was a professional player. Every professional player had a different playing style. Training here could effectively help the Supreme Alliance judge which playing style to use when facing the national competition. What do you think? When Liuli said this, she tilted her head towards Qin Mo, and there was a soft smile at the corner of her mouth. Seeing this scene, do you want to go down and have a fight? Qin Mo put one hand in his trouser pocket and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the youngster not far away. Fu Jiu stood by Shui Yaoyao's side, with a lollipop in her mouth. Her expression was very indifferent, but because of that, it seemed that the youngster was protecting the person next to him. Qin Mo's gaze paused, his fingers tightening. She looked over and saw that he was looking at Fu Jiu. Her beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but wrinkle, and then she said with a smile, "I heard that Spade Z is very powerful. I know people from the Fu family, but I didn't expect Spade Z to be him. No matter what, with Spade Z joining the team, the Supreme Alliance's attack power should be stronger. But I heard that he hasn't gone through professional training. I wonder if there will be any flaws in the National League." Fu Jiu smiled and said, "You're right. I won't," Qin Mo replied. His voice was calm and his side profile was still handsome and noble. Liuli smiled faintly. "For Almighty Qin to be so sure, even I want to spar with him. I can see that he's quite loyal and protective. That chubby girl should be quite happy being by his side." Hearing this, Qin Mo retracted his gaze and looked at Liuli's face. Liuli's smile became even sweeter. There wasn't the slightest hint of coldness that an ice beauty should have. Whether it was the Supreme Alliance or the Kali team, they were all looking at this scene, imagining a lot of things. Captain and Almighty Qin are so compatible. What he meant was that he would teach his brother a few backup moves when they entered the game later. Fu Jiu blinked and nodded with a smile. Qin Mo still had earphones on his black hair. When he saw the youngster sitting beside him, he turned his perfectly chiseled handsome face to the side. Because the youngster was so close to him, his eyes finally regained a trace of warmth. Chapter 279. The first thing Fu Jiu did when she sat down wasn't to touch her computer, but to turn around and tilt to a certain degree. She held the mouse beside Shui Yaoyao's hand and said in a soft voice, "Instead of familiarizing yourself with the input method here, why don't I help you download the one we Chinese are used to?" Fu Jiu's hand speed was really fast. Even in such a position, it was no problem for her to switch and crack. After the program was installed, she pressed enter, and it was the familiar Chinese input method. Not every key was used in the game, so there was no need to explain the Japanese sound. As long as the account password was entered, there would be no obstacles in the operation. Shui Yaoyao looked at the screen in front of her, still surprised that His Highness Jiu would notice her. She saw that the young man had already sat up straight and put on his headphones. "If you have any problems, tell me." Shui Yaoyao agreed and also entered battle mode. This was indeed a good place to improve her strength. Shui Yaoyao had her own ideas. She saw His Highness Jiu's protectiveness. Because of this, she wanted to make herself stronger. She didn't want a situation like today to happen a second time, and she wanted His Highness Jiu to stand up for her. His Highness Jiu also had his own things to do. If she really wanted to help His Highness Jiu one day. Wasn't she strong? What qualifications did she have? Sometimes, even Shui Yaoyao herself didn't know that under Fu Jiu's influence, her thoughts had changed. Be good to your parents, even if you were wronged outside. Be stronger to be qualified to say that you were a useful person. Fu Jiu was indeed good to Shui Yaoyao. This had nothing to do with Shui Yaoyao, but she herself wanted to be good to this girl. Sensible, kind, loyal. Yes, loyal. The first two were easy to do, but the last one was getting rarer and rarer nowadays. As long as it didn't suit her, she would easily betray her. This was something that too many people would do, as early as that day, when Shui Yaoyao handed her the school uniform and asked her to cover the blood on her back. Fu Jiu knew that this person was worth her effort to teach. She was very clear that there were too many people who liked her because she was dressed as a man. Once she returned to being a woman, she might face a lot of questions and disgust. But Shui Yaoyao didn't ask anything. She just accompanied her and walked silently. There was never a need to ask for true support. This was Liang Chaoi's love for Carino Lao. Friends should also be like this. However, in the eyes of others, such a scene would have a different meaning. After all, Fu Jiu was still in men's clothes. Every time she turned her head to talk to Shui Yaoyao, it looked very intimate. Qin Mo glanced sideways. It was rare that his attention wasn't entirely on the computer screen. It was a 1v1 qualifier. Chapter 280. When did China's esports become so powerful? That professional player was a little suspicious. He wanted to confirm the other party's identity. After all, some people in Tokyo also used Chinese characters to name themselves. Who knew that at this moment, there was a loud bang? The person next to him fiercely tapped on the keyboard and said in Japanese, "Are you kidding me? So fast. I didn't even have time to react, and it's even a Chinese name." The pro player heard his friend's words and turned to look at his computer. It was a man again. He couldn't understand it, only a code name. Z. Fu Jiu had always been like this when she played games. In a 1v1, she would definitely destroy the opponent quickly. However, what Lioli didn't understand was why the man sitting next to her was playing so differently from before. What was wrong with the lazy, noble, and unhurried man today? The coldness in Qin Mo's eyes was transmitted into the game through the mouse and keyboard. Just when the members of Supreme Alliance finally eliminated one and were about to eliminate the second one, they saw their captain's name appear on the Japanese server's leaderboard. Entered the rankings. Although it was a 1v1 ranking, what would the pro players who came here every day think? Anne. Little Spade, what the hell are you doing? Do you have to be so crazy? You're only one rank behind Captain. Lin Feng turned his head and looked in Fu Jiu's direction. He knocked on his headphones, asking Fu Jiu to listen to the voice. Fu Jiu whispered while playing the game, "What's wrong? What's going on with you and Captain?" Was he trying to drive them crazy? Lin Feng lowered his voice and said, in front of the girls, "Give me some face. Don't be too handsome, or else how am I going to attack later?" Fu Jiu chuckled. "I'm fast when I play games. I'll slow down later. Actually, it's fine if it's just you, but why is even the captain like this today?" Lin Feng let out a long sigh. His usual style wasn't like this. Could it be that the girl's stimulation method was also suitable for Captain? Lioli was so beautiful that even the captain was convinced. When Fu Jiu heard this, she looked towards the empty space on her left. Qin Mo waved the mouse in his hand, his left hand sliding across the keyboard. His fingers moved so quickly that no one could see his movements clearly. This was the first time Fu Jiu had watched the Almighty play games in real life. Very handsome. His fingers looked good too. No wonder so many people wanted to watch the Almighty's live stream. Their specialties were indeed different. What's more, that devilishly handsome face always gave people an indescribable sense of nobility. The positions of the two captains were different from them. There would be an empty space in the middle. This was a characteristic of every team captain. On this side, the other members of the Tokyo squad were still looking for them when they saw the members of Sakura Stream squad in their uniforms coming in. In Tokyo, the influence of Sakura Stream was equivalent to that of the Supreme Alliance in Jiang City. Hence, when they walked in, the rest of the teams were all shocked. Sakura Stream, why are they here? But after the troops left, the look in Shuji's eyes changed immediately. This person had always been bloodthirsty. During the qualifiers, it was easy to see the ruthlessness in his body. Tokyo was their territory. How could they allow those ignorant Chinese to steal the limelight? So what if he left? He would come back eventually. He was waiting right here. Teach that China's #1 team a lesson. In reality, the Supreme Alliance's group didn't leave. Chapter 283. No matter what kind of person Liuli was, she was right about one thing. Right now, the most important thing for Supreme Alliance was time. Because in this team, there were 4 new members who hadn't played together in a match yet. According to this situation, it meant that there was no change in the lineup. To make full use of everyone's abilities, they had to do a combination. But time didn't allow for it. Originally, the Qin group's internal competition was held in advance to break in. But no one expected that Qin Mo would cancel the qualification. So not only outsiders, but even Secretary Liang didn't quite understand Qin Mo's decisions at certain times. Feng Yi was more optimistic about this approach, and he praised, as the saying goes, there can be no construction without destruction. Supreme Alliance has been established for so long, it's time to do something unexpected. It was indeed unexpected. After all, the new members didn't have many competition records, and their opponents didn't have enough data to analyze them. But at the same time, breaking in was a big deal. As an attendant, Secretary Liang saw all the pros and cons in his eyes. And as a member of a professional team, he knew this better than anyone else. After the dishes were served, Carly chuckled and said to Fujio in a seemingly unintentional manner, "We all watched your match, and it was indeed wonderful. But those people were too inexperienced, and they were flustered by your luring. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so defenseless against a new account like you. Their attention was completely diverted away from you. Peking University is still the best." One person diverted the entire opponent's attack power, and he held on for so long. With such a god blocking in front, it should be easy to win the selection contest, right? The implication of this sentence was that Yin Wuyao was the main reason why she had such a wonderful victory in the selection contest. In fact, Fujio had only used her strategy a little better, and that was because her opponent was too weak. Fujio listened to that, and her thin lips curled up. She put a piece of meat in her mouth and said meaningfully, "It was very easy." Yin Wuyao frowned. He was old, and he had suffered many betrayals when he was in a professional team. In fact, he didn't like the undercurrent between professional players. This was because some of them had formed a habit when they spoke. They wouldn't just say whatever they wanted to say. They would praise one person and belittle another. Only he himself knew what kind of existence the youth was in his heart. If it wasn't for Spade Z, he would never play in the professional league again. He really didn't understand how this member of the Kali squad could be so imaginative. She even looked as if she had guessed correctly. Others had never thought about what they had thought about. Besides, did Spade Z need to prove his ability? 99 FC kills in Zone C. Other than Qin Mo, who else had achieved such a result? Are these women blind or what? Even if it was a new account, it still needed to be skillful in order to wipe out the entire team. Yin Wuyao, who had wanted to act cool in front of the girls before he left the house, now only had the corners of his mouth twitched, and he didn't have any other thoughts. He finally understood why the team captain asked Secretary Liang, "Is this really their friendly team?" Of course, a man wouldn't fuss over something like that with the other party. Chapter 284. Even if there was enmity, it was targeted. Moreover, they were all old friends, so they didn't mind teasing each other. So the other members of Supreme Alliance didn't understand the meaning behind those words. It had nothing to do with intelligence. It was a hidden sense of xenophobia under that enthusiasm. Only the xenophobic person could understand it. And the teammates who had been through so many things with Fujio could feel it even more clearly. Even if it wasn't too obvious, they could still get a little bit of it. Oh yeah, Yao Yao, did you not go through professional training? A girl sitting next to Shui Yao Yao leaned over and lowered her voice to a volume that only the two of them could hear. I'll teach you after dinner. You've always been playing in the wilderness, so you probably don't know much about teamwork. There are some things that you need to pay attention to. Anyway, we're all friends, so you can ask me if you don't understand anything. Also, we all know about your family's financial situation. If you need any help, you can come to us. We're all girls, unlike guys like them, who don't care about such things. There was nothing wrong with those words. However, the girl quickly added, in the future, if there's anything you like, just tell us directly. But there's one thing, we don't like it when people touch our things without even greeting us. Don't bring out your bad habits from school. Bam! Shui Yao Yao stood up. The others didn't know why, but they saw that her whole face was red, and she gritted her teeth. What do you mean by that? Shui Yao Yao was still trying to persuade herself that even if the other team was scheming, she shouldn't have a direct confrontation. After all, once something happened, it would cause trouble for Highness Zhou. Even if they called her fat or ugly, it didn't matter. Anyway, it wasn't the first time she had been criticized in school. But the other party pointed out the one thing she couldn't tolerate the most, stealing. That person was basically saying, "You're so poor, tell us if you like anything. We can give it to you, but you can't steal from us." Shui Yao Yao thought that after that interview, the truth should have been revealed. But sometimes, it wasn't like that. Some people believed that she was what she was. There was no reason, just because she was poor. Therefore, there was no guarantee that he would have such thoughts. The one thing Shui Yao Yao regretted the most was returning the thing she picked up to its owner. The owner was just like the beauty in front of him. She had an expression that said, "You liked my stuff, so you stole it from me. After stealing it, you were afraid of being discovered, so you returned it." Why were there so many people in the world like this? Shui Yao Yao didn't understand. Her anger and depression had pushed her to the limit, and when it exploded, everyone in the restaurant was looking in her direction, their gazes filled with strong disapproval. The members of Supreme Alliance were stunned. After all, no one heard the conversation between the girl and Shui Yao Yao. Shui Yao Yao couldn't help but clench her fists when she saw the gazes directed at her. Perhaps in the eyes of most people, her current behavior would make her look like an ugly, fat, and uncultured poor person. Only then did she realize that the one with the highest level of humor wasn't the girl who had mocked her and then pretended to be innocent. Instead, it was the captain of Carly, Beauty Azure. Things were obviously not like that, but she made it sound like that. Shui Yao Yao's fingers drooped in despair. Then at this moment. Chapter 286. As soon as Fujio said that, everyone quieted down. Secretary Liang, who still wanted to say something, was stunned by the sudden aura. He retracted his long legs that were about to take a step forward. That pretty girl with red eyes paused, clenched her fingers, and turned her head to look at her captain, Lioli. Lioli looked up and met the silver-haired youngster's eyes. Her mind was very active, and she said naturally, "What guidance?" Supreme Alliance and Kali have been friends for so many years, and a competition would hurt the relationship. The Supreme Alliance people didn't know what was going on. All they saw was Shui Yao Yao getting angry at Gue Gue, and they couldn't judge anything else. So they had to admit that Lioli was right. A competition at this time would obviously hurt the relationship. Coco reached out his hand to pull Fujio, meaning that she should sit down first and talk about it later. Fujiu slowly narrowed her eyes, and she didn't want to back down at all. Lioli chuckled, and she wanted to say something more. Just at this moment, an indifferent and deep voice suddenly came from the other side. Didn't you just say that winning or losing in the selection contest has nothing to do with him, and that he is not good enough? Since that's the case, then guide him. No one expected Qin Mo to speak at this time. Even Secretary Liang couldn't help but look at his CEO. Coco was even more confused about his captain's actions. The captain was so smart that he must know that a competition at this time would affect the relationship between the two teams. Lioli's expression froze, and she looked at that still handsome and noble face in disbelief. Usually at this time, men wouldn't care, but why this time? Qin Mo didn't speak anymore, and he leaned back with a lazy and imposing posture. It was obvious that he didn't say those words casually. Lin Xiaotong wasn't good at Chinese, and Qin Mo's tone was very calm, so she laughed out loud in her heart. Even Almighty Qin said that this useless young master of the Fu family was not good enough, and he asked someone to guide him. It seemed that Almighty Qin had enough of this legendary rookie king, Spade Z. He was arrogant, and he even brought an ugly and fat pig into the Supreme Alliance, and protected him again and again. Lin Xiaotong sneered. Did he really think that the Supreme Alliance was his? Now, Almighty Qin had spoken. In that case, there was no need for them to be polite. Lin Xiaotong and Gue, whose eyes were still red, looked at each other. Gue smiled and said, "Since Almighty Qin has said so, then let's have a match. Friendship first, competition second. If I win, please don't take it to heart, young Master Fu." Of course. Fu Jiu looked at Qin Mo when she said this. Qin Mo didn't have any special expression. He held the Japanese teacup in his hand, looking elegant and cold. It was a 1v1 qualifier. The closest game location was the training ground. The team members returned to their reserved seats and entered the game to watch the match. At this moment, Supreme Alliance was in a complicated mood. There were also 2 or 3 girls in the Kali team who felt that the atmosphere today was unusually strange. Xiaotong and Gue weren't like this in the past. Perhaps that Shui Yaoyao and Fu Jiu were too annoying? Chapter 287. They completely believed in Gue's ability. As an official member of the Kali team, Gue was not only outstanding in Jiang City, but also had a certain fan influence all over the country. Different from her sweet appearance, her attack power was very strong, and her maneuvers were sharp. Even if this Spade Z was the FC King, that was only when he was playing in the wild and playing with his teammates to clear dungeons. Spade Z would only show how powerful he was if his opponent was weak. In fact, people like this were not rare in the whole country. The members of the Kali team had their own ideas. So, in their eyes, Gue was guiding Fu Jiu in this impromptu match. However, none of them noticed that the moment the silver-haired young man put on his headphones, he seemed to have changed completely. That pair of black and white eyes no longer exuded an enchanting smile, but a completely black glint. That kind of stubborn, bloodthirsty look. Gue didn't have any strategy. She just felt that facing a newbie, she just needed to be vigilant enough. Even if that person was the FC King, she hadn't played as many professional matches as she had. In a 1v1, there was no one to block the knife for him. With her own attack power, Spade Z could not last more than 5 minutes. Gue was waiting for the final countdown in the game. It's starting. As soon as the words, Coco, were typed. The character with the name Spade Z waved his hand and threw out an unexpected stun skill. Gue wanted to dodge subconsciously so that she wouldn't be hit. Pfft, such a child's play. Gue manipulated her character, turned sideways, and laughed disdainfully. However, she didn't expect that right at this moment. A pure black silhouette suddenly jumped out from her empty left side. Gui's eyes widened. When did it happen? How did he come here? She didn't see him at all. She didn't even notice him. After the stun skill, he could still continue to attack. Gui had never seen this kind of fighting style. Spade Z. Just how fast was his hand speed? Not only Gui, but also the Kali team members who were watching this match froze with their right hands that were holding the mouse. Click. Fu Zhou's slender hands were still dancing on the keyboard. Following the rhythmic tapping sound, she raised her sword. A bright light flashed on the screen, and Gui's body splattered with a huge amount of blood. Her HP bar had been cut in half. But that was not the most important thing. Most importantly, at the same time, Fu Zhou was able to free her hand to type, "I will slowly kill the remaining half of your HP. Next, I will attack your right hand." As soon as Gui heard those words, she subconsciously wanted to raise her defense. But thinking was one thing, and acting was another. Before she could defend herself, another wound appeared on her body. His HP dropped by another half. But at this moment, no one understood why Fu Zhou stopped. Tilting his head to look, the young man was indeed no longer attacking. Instead, he was sucking on a lollipop and holding the mouse in his hand. There was a devilish smile on his face. Heal. Lin Xiaotong couldn't help but turn on her microphone to remind Gui, who was stunned. Logically speaking, this was against the rules. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.